Imagine, you're scrounging around for food. You climb a tree. You climb to the top of the palm, and there it is, a nut. Oh, enough for everybody. But you're hungry, so you might as well snag one right now. Pop it in your mouth, and the feeling's overwhelming. You start to feel a tad lightheaded. You have the compulsion to spit, and when you do, flying red chunks just spew out all over the ground around you. But there's no mistaking, you're hooked. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Temptation Through Time. Before we dive immediately into the history of the world's first stimulant, the betel nut from the areca palm tree, we're going to discuss the physical effects, how it impacts your body chemistry, which neurotransmitters fire, what is it like, is there anything else that's currently used in society that might recreate a similar feeling. The betel nut is a tree nut. It's located on the areca palm tree, and although you can chew the nut itself alone, it typically is ingested in a combination of steps. It's wrapped in a palm leaf from the tree it came from, with a combination of the nut itself and slaked lime. This lime acts similar to some nicotine pouches that have little balls in them that essentially kind of irritate your gums in order to get the nicotine into your bloodstream quicker. The slaked lime is the same thing. When placed in the leaf and chewed, yes, you still have to spit and all that as if you had a lip full of dip, but the construction lime, the slaked lime, eats through your skin, eats through your gums, and effectively you get a more potent rush. So once it's all wrapped up, you start chewing on it and you spit it out. And unfortunately, this isn't as simple as like a little liquid. It's a bit rough. It comes out in chunks and the juice is red itself. This is why when you search up the betel nut, you see these huge kind of garish representations that kind of misconstrue what betel actually is. And when you chew this, within minutes, the active ingredient, active chemical, arecacholine, reaches your brain via oral mucosa absorption. Meaning that's like in your mouth. It binds to the same receptors as nicotine. And like nicotine as well, it releases what is known as acetylcholine, which increases your overall alertness and autonomic body function as well as digestion. As a side effect, it releases some dopamine, which is the chemical linked to gratification. On top of this, neurotransmitters are releasing norepinephrine and epinephrine to mildly stimulate your sympathetic nervous system. This elevates your heart rate as well as your blood pressure, and that's when the feelings of euphoria and alertness come in. Other chemicals such as GABA, which decreases your discretion, and the feel-good kind of stuff, like most substances, increases with higher doses. Other kind of side effects include light hallucinatory effects similar to DMT, and like we said earlier, it's definitely a stimulant high. Some people, if you research, will describe it as microdosing cocaine, and it's not the longest high ever. It does last between 1 to 3 hours. So nothing like acid where you're tripping 8 to 10 hours. It's a bit more chill. It's almost like weed. Granted, like most substances, there are health concerns. Although this is a natural nut, because of the way that it's packaged, before even the chemical add-ins and whatnot, just the simple fact that there's this red blood juice that comes from it being chewed and having to spat out the nut chunks in these public places because it's just a lifestyle thing is definitely a safety hazard. It's also important to note that the areca nut is considerably addictive. In fact, if you consume it regularly, addiction can begin within weeks. One important facet of this is the fact that the nut itself is not truly the harm. The harm comes from the slaked lime that we talked about earlier. OSF, or oral submucous fibrosis, represents as a progressive stiffening of the mouth tissue, which can become precancerous. That's why when the majority of modern representation of betel nut is highly linked to carcinogenic disease, despite the fact that it's all due to the lime being consumed. So, because there is this slaked lime component, if you consume it consistently for long term, there are high correlations between chronic betel use and squamous cellular carcinoma of the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus, meaning your mouth, your vocal cords, and your throat. Oral cancer, never got to have that, but I would expect that it's not so fun. Another side effect of just cancer in general is that you have gastrointestinal issues. Your body's just not going to be able to consistently process if it's elevated at certain levels consistently and then not all the time. Like powering a train and not putting in enough oil or gas, like eventually it's just going to start not working. Because of the chronic sympathetic stimulation that affects your heart rate being elevated and your blood pressure and all that, you can have significant strain on your cardiovascular system. A common long-term risks of consistent use include hypertension and arrhythmia, which are both like heart issues and blood pressure issues. One thing that's kind of interesting is occasionally there's people that will combine it with tobacco. And funny enough, there's symbiotic effects between the two of them. In a way, the addictive potential does increase, but at the same time, the arecacholine, which is the chemical released by the betel nut, the experience is elevated, so the enjoyer can have a more intense experience. Like chewing tobacco, it also discolors your teeth. And a sad kind of fact that blends into the social arc of the betel nut as a stimulant, it's kind of deemed a poverty drug. Because it's found in the local wildlife, particularly in Southeast Asia, the government has no interest in making safe methods for consumption. No one has any intention of trying to find a different way to get it consumed so that people don't have to have slaked lime and risk having cancer after, chronic addiction for years and years and years. Now, let's dive into this crazy history. Let's talk about it. How long has this substance been in use? When it comes to the societal and cultural history, what are we looking at? What do we got? Anthropologically speaking, when you look into this stuff, because history it's a little up for grabs sometimes, we don't always have concrete evidence. Hypothetically, it's as old as cannabis, which is another Southeastern Asian plant that's native to that area. As soon as people were able to combust stuff, as soon as somebody decided to put one in their mouth and see what happens, hey, they were big geeking. You know what I mean? Currently, it's mostly just used in Taiwan and old India, meaning the gentrified section. But historically, it's based in Southeast Asia, particularly Malaysia, Taiwan, like we said, Thailand, and India, of course. It primarily functioned as a socialization mechanism. In ancient cultures, they would share a bowl amongst each other, each taking a nut out or soaking the bowls in with the leaves and whatnot, and just take a turn passing the bowl around. Like alcohol, able to be accessed at every societal level, even in prehistoric societies, just because it's naturally found in a palm tree. It also helps with physical pain, but since there's other more potent options, the cultural significance has faded over time. Interestingly, when the Dutch was experiencing colonization, they occupied much of Southeast Asia. And when the explorers got there, similar to British explorers, the explorers got hooked. And as quality tea sets were linked in Victorian England with status, betel nut sets set similar significance in the Netherlands within high society. Overpriced betel nut sets experienced price point regulation at one point due to familial debt accruing out of proportion. Genuine families that were well-to-do were nearing bankruptcy because these people were just blowing money. All these ladies. It got so out of hand, there was a slave just to hold an umbrella over the set. And then you had another one holding the umbrella over the royal lady. And then you have another one for holding the set. So you got 3 minimum, and sometimes people would carry extra pieces, just like little add-ons and knickknacks and whatnot, you know, for flair and all that. It just was crazy. But currently, because there's better options per se, all the experiences that you can get from consuming Areca choline, from consuming the betel nut, can be found in other substances more potently. So unless you're pretty poor, there's not much need culturally from that perspective. So nowadays, if you go out looking for it to see people using it, you'll just really find most people in India and older Netherlands districts and Taiwan. A lot of those people, even in those places, associate usage with their grandparents. Another modern negatively affected societal perspective was the influence from politics and media. It really overplayed the health effects, especially 1900s to present, and YouTube has not helped at all with the stigma. A lot of YouTube content presents betel nut for its health consequences, blaming the Areca nut not for its actual effects alone. It blames the nut for the issues derived from the slaked line, which is a carcinogen. The nut itself, it's just a nut. But funny enough, Dr. Seuss, one of his most famous pieces of literature, Horton Hears a Who, features a particular antagonist. And that antagonist has this culture that revolves around a particular nut. And when they consume it, they go wild and crazy, and it happens to just so make their teeth look bloody. Blood red, one might say. And somehow make bad decisions. So even in the places where it is consumed, most people aren't really interested in it. There's not very positive representations, you know? In the same way that, you know, Quaaludes have Wolf of Wall Street and cocaine has Tony Montana, and, you know, Breaking Bad has meth. I mean, Cheech and Chong movie, weed. I don't know. Point being, the representation has kind of taken it from being this social stimulant potluck experience to pretty much obscurity. Honestly, I had never heard of it until I was looking up recently. And hey, I hope you found something interesting. Next week, we're gonna dive into one of my favorites. We're gonna stay in Asia, but we're gonna drift from the southeast, and we're gonna focus on Central Asian rituals, the first recorded use of cannabis. But that's all we have for today. I hope you have a good one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned. Temptation through time. Stay safe. Peace.